It is Jimmy Butler and the upstart underdog Miami Heat versus the Joker and the big, bad, heavily favored Denver Nuggets. And so if you didn't watch it, we watched it. It is our act of kindness, our good mitzvah of the day. And if you missed it, so here's how it went. Nikola Jokic, living up to the hype, 27 points. He had 14 assists, 10 rebounds, and a partridge in a pear tree. That is another triple-double. And they said there would be no math, but another triple-doubler for Nikola Jokic as Denver able to mollywop Miami in this game. They win by 11, but it wasn't really that close. The Nuggets, Jamal Murray had 26, most of his damage in the first half. The Nuggets never trailed after the early part of the first quarter, and they led by as many as 24 points. I didn't play in the NBA, but I think that's a lopsided game. But what do I know? I just do the overnight show. But the better story continues to be in the losing locker room. So that is where we will begin in our rant and rave about the NBA Finals, the Miami side. So let's discuss the question. Who gets to wear the shame bell for the Heat as they go down? Down go the Heat in game one. Not a single elimination, so they still have to lose 3 more games to be eliminated. So I've got Buzz Lightyear, Special Agent, and Ice Bucket. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to get a headache, which is what I'm going to have with the people I'm working with, at least one of them. I will get a headache. All right, so A, Jimmy Butler was not your typical majestic star. You might be thinking, wow, you're going to blame Jimmy Butler because you always blame the star player. No! Curveball. Throwing a curveball. I'm not going to blame Jimmy Buckets in this game. The shame bell goes to the accessories for the Miami Heat, the ragtag group of players around Jimmy Butler. And Miami was an ulcer waiting to happen in this performance. I mean, it was an ulcer-inducing type performance here. It's like the clock struck midnight, and they had streaker issues is what they had, as the glass slipper turning into a crappy shoe right there at midnight in this game. Caleb Martin, Max Strus, and Duncan Robinson, the big 3 gunners, alongside Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, took 23 shots, and they made 2 of them in an NBA Finals game. 23 shots, they made 2 of them from three-point range, took 16 three-point shots. They also made 2. There's a theme here. Number 2, 2 three-point shots, 2 out of 16 for those guys, and a plus-minus rating while those 3 were on the court of minus 26 in the defeat for Miami at the hands of the Denver Nuggets. And so these guys collectively were the Duke of Puke for the team from South Florida in this game. Caleb Martin, Max Strus, and Duncan Robinson. Now, they look like they needed some kind of medical intervention because they were drowning. They were taking on water is what they were taking on in this game. So you always ask the question, was the stage too big? And you're going to say no, were the lights too bright? It's only one game. These guys have played well in other NBA playoff games. But that was really scary if you have Miami in the NBA Finals, because they played like the back of their basketball card. There's an old saying, you're going to play better. You're going to play better for certain periods of time, but you're going to eventually fall back down. And I saw a lot of what I would say is Dr. Maller here. My diagnosis would be a lot of tight-tuchus syndrome. There was a fair amount of tight-tuchus syndrome here. These guys sucked at a time you could not suck. But this is the concern. We talked about it when we were breaking down in a previous episode of the show. Extreme outcomes are often followed by more moderate ones. So when somebody goes nuts, like Caleb Martin, who looked like Steph Curry or Dwayne Wade for stretches against the Boston Celtics, you're like, well, he's not that good. So he's not going to play like that forever. Eventually, he's going to come crashing back down. And this was game 1. It's only one game, but he played like a guy that should be playing in Taiwan with Dwight Howard, is the way that he played in game 1. And then you've got Max Strus. All this guy does is spot up and shoot three-pointers. And he took 10 shots, and he made as many as I made and you made. Yes, the goose egg. Goose egg, no points. He did have 5 rebounds and 5 assists. It was like he was riding the Buzz Lightyear ride at Disneyland, but his Astro Blaster was not working. It was misfiring, shooting blank lasers there. And then Duncan Robinson, we had him as the answer to a question, the Maller riddle of the day in a previous episode of the show. So Duncan Robinson, who's also supposedly a sniper. I've seen him make a bunch of shots for Miami in this playoff, by the way. And Duncan Robinson takes only 6 shots, makes 1 of them, and that was it. 1 3-point shot, and that is all. So, page 2 here. What about the adjustments? What can Coach Spo cook up in the Sorcerer's Workshop to try to solve the puzzle? And you say, well, there's a lot to do. Now, the positive, the person that's a cheerleader, oh, it's going to be a long series, would be like the Heat got within reasonable striking distance in the fourth quarter. With all these things going sideways, it was still within reach. There was a 10, 12-point spread. I think at one point Miami actually got under 10. I think it was a 9-point spread at one stretch. But the biggest adjustment, this is my professional advice, unsolicited advice to Coach Spo. I would like you to go hire an actor from a classic movie from many, many years ago, Tommy Lee Jones, better known as the special agent, Agent K from the Men in Black. Bring him in there because he's got that neuralizer. And what I would do, you need amnesia if you're Caleb Martin and Max Strus and Duncan Robinson and all these guys. So you bring in Agent K, special agent from Men in Black. You get that neuralizer, and you go like this, and boom! You hit the button, and then you can erase all memory of this clunker for Miami and replace it with highlights of nothing but shots going in, which is what happened when the Miami Heat played the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals Game 7. But once these cats have been neuralized, then Coach Spo can go in there and do his thing. But do I expect a lot better performance in Game 2? No, I think the turning point, I originally thought it was going to be Game 2, but I believe the turning point will actually be in Game 3. Because that's typically, back in Miami, Denver's going to win the first 2, so you go back to Miami next week, and that's when those guys, if they start missing shots in Miami, because typically the backup, the secondary players make shots at home and they miss shots on the road. That's always been, that's the axiom of the NBA, and so that's fine. Now, the other point here, did the officials do the Heat dirty? There's a lot of chatter about the officiating. If you saw the game, you know what I'm talking about, but if not, you don't. I would say the officials were not helpful, is the way I would say it. This was historical, the lopsided nature of the officiating, and wow, was it bad? So each team played 48 minutes. They didn't play less. One team didn't play less. One team didn't play more. They each played 48 minutes in the NBA Finals. That is a record for the fewest foul shots attempted by a team in NBA Finals history. The number 2, which is you know what number 2 stands for? I'm going to go take a number 2. The officials took a number 2, is what they did in this game. And if you do the math on this, and trust me, I'm using Maller math, so I'm never wrong with Maller math. Maller math, you're always right. When I was in school and I had to do algebra and crap like that, I was always wrong. But Maller math, I'm right. So let's do the math. The Miami Heat took 96 field goal attempts, 96 from the floor. They were given two foul shots. And I just hate these lopsided. The game of basketball it's so subjective. And that's the issue, right? You can call fouls on almost every possession if you want. It's like holding in the NFL. We talk about this all the time. Call holding if you want. By the letter of the law, there's holding. Well, you can find a violation if you want for each team on every possession. And when you see lopsided outcomes like this, and I had Denver, so I'm happy. I picked Denver to win, and I'm happy about that, although the point spread was close late in the game. But the case in point on this, how subjective this is, I think we can all agree that most fouls happen in the painted area, in the key. Right? That's usually where the contact is. There's a bundle of humanity in the painted area. So if you look at the stats in the key and you try to figure out, all right, was one team shooting more? I heard this all the time. These loser Laker historians would always, well, it's Golden State just shot 3-point shots. That's why there was a disparity. Well, no, if you look at the numbers, that's not exactly what happened. That's your perception. That's not reality. So in this game, get to the point, please. So in this game, Denver attempted 36 shots in the painted area. All right, they got 20 foul shots. 36 in the painted area, 20 foul shots. Miami took, what do you think, 15 shots in the painted area? How about 42 shots? They actually took 6 more shots in the key in the painted area than Denver, and they picked up 2. Now, I'm not going to sit here and defend completely Miami because they did come out lethargic and they were sluggish and all that, which we kind of thought was going to happen. But that disparity smells rotten. And who likes a rotten smell? It's decaying, rotting, terrible. All right, last word here. Last word. So how pleased are the Nuggets, the winning team? How pleased are the Nuggets after this Game 1 victory? So Michael Malone, you can do the happy dance. That's what he'll do in private. He'll do the happy dance, right? Like that. You're doing the happy. He'll lift weights. He'll pump some iron. He'll do the happy dance, right? Privately, that's what's going to happen. Now, publicly, he will be stone-faced and, it's only one game. We got a long way to go. That team's a good team over there. They're going to come back. They just had an off night. That kind of bullcrap. But this was surgical. Right? It's like a surgery with AI, where very rarely does that screw up. Business-like. The Nuggets could not have played a better game. Jokic and Murray, game breakers, the ringleader Jokic, the passing. They also poured ice buckets of water on the rust versus rest debate. And nobody's barking about that. Rust versus rest. What would you rather have? Blah, 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 blah. But because the perception was, well, Denver had a lot of time off. Miami just played on Monday. So now it's in the opposite. The opposite, well, Miami was tired. That's why they lost the game. Of course, if Denver had won the game, and which they did, or if they lost the game, rather, it would have been, well, they were rusty, but they'll be better in Game 2. So it's after the fact narrative generating by sports gas bags and blowhards. That's the way this works. And I hear, it's the fatigue of the mile-high city, 5,690 feet above sea level. That is phooey. They could have played that game, as we said, right there, somewhere out in the ocean, right at sea level. Would have been fine, no problem. The Heat just were terrible. They were bad. They didn't play defense, missed open shots. I was like Denver played great defense. There were a lot of missed open shots.